So the purpose of today's presentation, again, is really just to work with the units that have had their status revoked by the IRS, their 501c3 status. As we know, that doesn't prevent you from being a PTA. It does prevent you from doing some things within PTA. So two notable things on that are, one, technically, if you are a unit that's revoked but is still doing fundraising, you're no longer tax exempt, which means you should be paying taxes on your fundraising income. So that's one aspect. That's a rare occasion with the IRS. Okay, so the IRS is not coming after our revoked units to ask them what they've been doing and, saying, oh, well, you raised money, we're going to charge you. Sometimes the bank might reach out and say your number isn't valid anymore, and that could cause an issue as well. Again, that happens very rarely. And then the more common thing that is happening is, as you know, National PTA especially has been increasing the number of grants that they're offering. And that's something that New York State is considering to start offering grants. Those grants can only go to units in good standing, especially we can work around most aspects pretty quickly to correct good standing. The one thing that we can't do quickly is get a unit reinstated. And so that really poses a problem when, especially when people want to give out grants, they want to know you have that tax exempt status so that they can follow their guidelines of how they can disperse their funds. So as I said earlier, we're very fortunate since we have started using the File 990 system. I think it's really helped our units. And so we are right now historically with the least amount of units that currently are in revoked status. It's about 20 or so statewide, which is excellent when you talk about 1,500 units. So we're going to just go through a little bit of the process. I don't know, that just pops up all the time and I need to get rid of that. Okay, so reinstating your 501c3 status requires filing the form 1023EZ. And so there's four steps here, and that's all that it's going to take to go through those 4 steps. If you do a little prep work ahead of time, it should take you no more than a half hour to make the application for reinstatement. So first we have a link here to the instruction form. The instruction form that this links to is quite long. We are only going to need to look at the eligibility worksheet, which is found at the end of that. And we're going to look at that in just a moment. Step 2 is if you find that you're eligible to file for the 1023EZ, and again, most of our revoked units are, you have to register on pay.gov, which is the system the IRS uses. We'll be looking at that. You can find the 1023EZ form there by doing the search box, or there's a quick link button now on the homepage of pay.gov for 1023EZ. We're going to complete the form. And once we complete the form, we'll make the payment and submit it to the IRS and hopefully hear back. Some of our units are hearing back as early as a month time that their reinstatement has gone through. So we're going to now, I'm going to stop the screen share here, and we're going to go to that instruction page that I referred to. Okay, oops, no, we don't want that. Okay, we're going to go here and see if we can get. Okay, I'm going to put that forward. So now I'm coming back to I'm using Dana's sign on, and for some reason, her share screen doesn't have as many, allow you to have as many windows open. Okay, so when you click on the link to the instructions, you are going to get this document. It is long. And there's a lot of wording on here that most of it you won't need. So there's a lot of general 1023 IRS information, the purpose of the form, who can file the form, the user fee, all of those things, which we'll cover as we go along. So what we need to do when we get to this link is scroll all the way down to the eligibility worksheet. Now, the eligibility worksheet doesn't appear anywhere that you can download it as a separate document. It doesn't have to be printed. It's just a matter of answering questions that are proposed on this worksheet. Nobody is going to ask you for your copy of the worksheet. It's just almost like a self-assessment. So as you can see, we're scrolling, and finally we get to the bottom where we have our eligibility worksheet. And there's about 25 questions on here that the unit should go through. And, one of the things that I suggest too is 2 people do it together. That's the beauty of Zoom, or 2 people can be in the same room, working on it. A lot of these questions don't pertain to a nonprofit such as PTA. Some of them are very nonprofit specific. So we just encourage the units to go through. So I'm going to just key on the most important questions, and those are included in the slideshow. So question 1 and 2 are the most important. Do you think as a unit in the next several years, will you be bringing in more than $50,000 in gross income? So again, all the money you take in before you pay anything out, is it going to be $50,000 or more? If the answer to that is yes, we're not going to be able to use the 1023-EZ. We're going to have to use the long 1023 form. The same as if we answered yes to question 2. If in the past 3 years that we've been revoked because we didn't file, was our gross income for all of those years, each of those years, over $50,000? If we answer yes to that, it's the same answer. So those 2, anytime you answer yes on this form, you're no longer allowed to file the 1023-EZ. So that's the number 1 assessment the unit has to make. Now, a couple of things. For instance, you're a unit, and most times your $45,000 is your gross receipts, but one year you had your fundraiser went really well and you went to 52,000. That is okay in the IRS's eyes. It's not like you're consistently going over 50,000. So you can take that extra 2,000, and if even you split it over the 3 years, you'll add 1,000 to those 2 45,000 years, and so now you're all those years are still under 50,000. So again, while this is the assessment the IRS wants you to go through, there is some wiggle room. So if a unit gets to this point and wants to answer yes, what we would want them to do is reach out either to you, to myself, or to Dana Welch to kind of walk them through, is it a correct yes, or could they actually be a no? I don't know how they would predict the next coming 3 years, but again, if they've been a unit that's been slow in COVID, but they know prior to COVID, they always did 60, 70,000, then again, we're going to have to direct them to the other version of this form. And that will be a separate set of instructions. So questions 1 and 2 are critical as far as our PTAs go. Then I'm just going to scroll through some of these questions here, and what's good about them is there's an explanation to every question. So you can really clarify for yourselves just by reading the information that the IRS has provided. Again, do you have assets more than 250,000? Hopefully not many of our PTA units have that. That would be in addition to cash. It would be if you had CDs, it would be, again, if you had any property, any equipment, like coffee makers and popcorn machines and that. If that all totaled more than 250,000, again, rare occasion for a PTA. But if they chose to answer yes, then again, they'd have to be directed away from the EZ form. They go through a few questions about being part of, doing business in a foreign country, being part of other organizations, which are these questions that we're going through now. Each PTA is their own independent association, so they're not connected financially in the IRS's eyes to anybody else. So those questions are all legitimately a no. We are all in unincorporated associations. It's important for everyone to know that. We have had some confusion where units are marking themselves as corporations. Our units are all unincorporated. So again, you're not other than an unincorporated association. So we've got another no here. We're not for profit, we will not we're not operating for profit. No, no, no. All of these questions are going to be no. You're going to see that things like they're very much keying in on churches. Are you a church? or part of churches, no. This one is a question that I've highlighted for you. Question 13, are you a school, college, or university? The answer to that is no. Again, we do have that confusion with some of our units. And a lot of it happens when they're having a professional tax preparer to prepare their taxes, and they don't really understand what PTA is. They will check off that PTA is a school because they feel that that's where the money is going, so that we're part of the school. So again, legitimately answering this question, are you a school? The answer is no. Then it goes through some things related to hospitals, agriculture, again, back to hospitals. So those are all no's, of course. Are you applying as a service organization for educational purposes? Again, under section 501F, no, that's a no. We all know we're 501c. So that's important. You can, easily say no to that, no to the N. So all of these things are no, till we get to, again, no credit counseling. We're not publicly traded. We're not selling carbon credits. We're not a health maintenance organization. We don't have donor advised funds. That would mean somebody who's given us money, we are holding it, and they have a say in how we spend it. Most of our units are not doing that as well. We are not a private foundation. We are public, as we know. And so there's a lot of questions in there. I think I skipped the one about the tanning booth, which I think is really funny too. I think one of the questions is, do you offer tanning services? So none of those. So we can easily go through any of those. But again, if you're working with a unit that's doing this, or a unit is doing it and they have questions, again, once they read the finer print, they'll recognize that more than likely their answer is no. So we're going to start here with question 29. So are you applying for reinstatement under section 4 and seeking to change your foundation classification? So they have to read the whole question there. We are seeking reinstatement, but we do not want to change our foundation classification. We still want to be known as a public foundation, a public association. So that would be a no. And then finally, question 30, this is the one that trips us up the most. Are you applying for retroactive reinstatement under section 5 or 6? And the answer to this is no, because we are applying for under number 7. So just as an aside, if to apply under number 5, you would have had to have been revoked less than 15 months ago. That is not usually the case. So we don't recommend going with the 5. That's also if you are ineligible to file the 990N postcard. So again, 5 covers that. 6 covers if you are more than 15 months and you filed the 990 in the past, again, you're a no. So we're really looking at our units. This is all about our units that are under $50,000 typically. So again, all the way through, all of our answers are no. And so that is going to be one of the questions on the form. Again, they don't want to see a copy of the worksheet. They're just going to ask you, did you answer no to all the questions on the worksheet? And since you're going to sign it at the end, that's a legal statement. You're saying yes, IRS. I did not answer no. I answered no to all of the questions. So that's it. So that again, this page on the IRS website is a lot, but we only really need to focus on that worksheet part if you're working with the unit. And then I'm just going to point out that at the bottom of this, they have what they call the NTEE codes, which is going to be asked for on the form, but we have already completed that on the template for everybody, so they'll have that. But in case anybody was ever wondering, there's a whole long list of things, and you'll see under B94 here. I hope you can see where I'm kind of highlighting right now. Parent-teacher groups. We have our own little B94. So that again is already completed for you on the template, but this is where we gained that information. Okay, any questions about the worksheet? Okay, so I'm going to stop the share on this. And I'm going to go back to, here. and go back to my PowerPoint, which is here, and share this again. Share. Okay, so again, with we talked about questions 1 and 2 where the gross revenue is under 50,000. We talked, oh, I did skip this one, and I'm sorry. Number 10, it asks if you've been previously revoked. So we do have some units that this is their second time being revoked. It is still okay for them to say no, because that's if you're revoked for doing something outside of IRS regulations. You might have taken in donations and not reported them. You may have, again, entered into unrelated business. It happens sometimes with nonprofits. They kind of go off tangent and they need to be brought back around. And it's usually because somebody has reported them for improper action. So, if you're revoked for not filing the audit, you're automatically revoked for not filing. It's okay for you to say no on that, and it explains it right on the worksheet. So again, we talked about you're not a school, so that's fine. That was question 13, just so that people know. And then question 30, we talked about how we will be using section 7. So what we recommend to do for the reinstatement process is to get the template. So we are providing the template to everybody, and we've already given all the region directors and the field team a copy of the template. So we want the unit to have that template. They can print it if they want. That's the way I like to do it. I print it, and then I kind of fill in the pertinent information to the unit I'm working with. So one of the questions that's going to be on there that they should, know ahead of time is if they are going to ask for their charter date. And so that the units, as you know, can find their charter date on their Member Hub unit data page. So they should have that to fill in on the template. And then they're going to have their payment method ready. So at the end of completing the form, the IRS is going to be asking for the fee. For the 1023 Easy, the fee is $275, and it can be paid 2 ways. You can do an ACH transfer from your bank account, which is the recommended way that we prefer for PTA. So again, the numbers you need to know ahead of time are the routing number for the account and then the account number. All regular PTA methods followed for that. So a second person needs to approve that this withdrawal is going to be done. They will also accept a credit card or a debit card. So again, we've had some units that a person personally wanted to put their credit card in. Again, I don't recommend it, but if that's what happens at that moment, I can't stop it, but with the assumption that the person will be able to get, paid back by the PTA. So again, we prefer the ACH transfer, but if the person puts in their credit card, it's okay with us. Again, if they put their personal credit card in, they need to make sure that they have the approval ahead of time that they are going to be reimbursed. So again, regular PTA procedure there. I'm going to stop the share again. Just go to the next slide. Yep. So we're going to go to pay.gov now. Okay, so let's get to pay.gov. Okay. So here we are on the lovely pay.gov site. So you can link to pay.gov from the IRS website if you're on it, or you can do just pay.gov and it will take you here. This is the IRS's system that they use for collecting payments, not just related to 1023s or your own taxes, but you can see all the different things that they link to here, the VA, military, Social Security, all different things. But because it's so popular, they have a quick link right here to the 1023 Easy. And just so you know, the 1023 Easy form also allows you to apply for tax exempt status. If you're another nonprofit, you're just getting started and you want to apply for tax exempt status, you would use the same thing here as well, the same form. But for us, we're going to use it for reinstatement. So again, apply right here is what we're going to click. And then it has wonderful instructions. Before you begin is step 1, and it links you to the instruction form that we looked at for the worksheet. And that has the instructions. Again, all these links are the same for the instructions. And it does give you some information. You can check the status of the application afterwards. So that link is there. It's not very, it doesn't really tell you your status. It just says, if you filed before such and such a date, we're working on it. If you didn't, you got to wait. And then they do have an 800 or this 877 number that you can call, but I've had people call and they've been on hold for hours. So there is this part of the pay.gov system that has messages too, once you file, and I recommend using that instead. So here we have the accepted payment methods. We talked about the ACH and the debit card or credit card. So they are wanting you to get prepared ahead of time. And so if you want to, then we would create an account. And so here's what the created an account looks like. We want you to create the second one, the organization account, and this could be the unit. And again, it's the name, first name and last name of the person doing it. And then the email address that I think that you want to put there is who's ever monitoring the progress of this should put the best email for them. I encourage it to be if a unit has a unit generic one, to do that. But if not, it should be the one that the person can access all the time, because some of our units have reported that messages from the IRS have gone to like their junk or spam file and they didn't catch it. So we want to make sure that their people are checking their email frequently to see if the IRS is either checking, like we've had a few people that their payments got denied, and it's because when they were typing in, they missed a number or that type of thing. And the IRS will reach out right away and say, we can't process because your payment didn't go through. So, so again, a good email address. And from there, when you hit activate your account, it's going to ask you the things like you would normally do when you register for this type of login, like your secret password and your challenge questions and what your answers are to that. So again, I strongly suggest the person who's setting that up to kind of record all of that. And so that they have it at the ready, but also not to be too private that they can't pass it on, right? So again, if you use that generic email address, if there's something happens in a couple of years, they could just pass it on and the unit can still use it and not like be getting somebody's personal information. So I'm already signed in, so I'm going to sign in on mine. So see, I have a very creative username that I will be passing on to our next treasurer. So a couple of things for your own purposes as well. If you're working with somebody, if they aren't feeling comfortable yet and they don't have the template, they can click on the preview the form and you can see it there. The only thing about the preview the form is, oh, there it is. So again, you can print it from here if you want a blank one. But as you know, the template is already pre-filled with our suggested answers. So if you wanted a blank one to work on, you can print right from that preview the form. Okay, now I want to get rid of this. Come on, go away. I just got to move the taskbar. Okay, so that's an option. We're going to go to continue to the actual form. So you're going to see here, it doesn't look like the form. So, but these questions are the questions on the form. I just wanted to be able to show you that what you're filling in are these blanks. But again, we have the template and the form we just looked at. We have that for you. So that's what it will generate, what these boxes will generate when you complete them. So we're not going to go through all of these here. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So at the top, and I'm going to go back to the template and do that as well. At the top, you will see, check this box that you've completed the eligibility worksheet and that you have answered no to all the questions. So that's right there. That's your confirmation to the IRS that you did the worksheet. Again, you don't have to submit it. You don't have to attach it. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to attest to the fact that you did it and your answers were all correctly no. And again, they ask you again about the gross receipts, because they really want to make that clear that who this form is for. Okay, again, the IRS is trusting us to be as honest as possible. They recognize any nonprofit that's bringing in $50,000 or less is a smaller nonprofit. And so really they want to be able to kind of move us through pretty quickly. There's not a lot of fraud that can happen with $50,000 in their eyes. We all know it in our eyes, but in their eyes, they're like, it's $50,000, you know, in the big scheme of the hundreds of thousands of nonprofits. They can live with what people are reporting. So but again, we want to be honest to the IRS. They are generously giving us that nonprofit tax exempt status. So we want to honor that. So again, we'll answer those questions. They were the same from the worksheet, and then we'll continue on to filling out the form. I will say sometimes there's problems with the saving, but you can try it, but just, you know, sometimes it may kick out all your answers and you have to start again. So again, that's why I recommend the template, either using ours and filling it out with your own information, or using the preview, printing it totally blank and having it there. Like I said, once you have that, it's just so easy. You're just typing things in as you go along. Does anybody have any questions about this before I stop the share on this particular page? Okay, you guys know you can stop me anytime too for any questions. So let me get to the template. Okay, so now I'm going to share the completed template. Oh, and I just want to welcome Dorian. Do you see Dorian on the call? Yes, I have, my boxes are smaller. Oh, I have a couple of people. I'm sorry. Dorian and Zadutu, thank you for joining us. I'm not sure when you jumped on, but I will say this. If you have any questions at all, you are welcome to unmute and just shout out your question and we will answer it. We are right now on the on the form that we're going to be completing to fill out to regain our status as a nonprofit. So this template will be provided through your region director or by directly contacting the office, the PTA office, or myself. And this is what the form, the information on this form is what we're going to type into the required boxes on the form, and it will generate this wonderful form that gets submitted to the IRS. So again, we're checking the box to attest that we completed the worksheet and answered all no. We are going to, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to talk about our under $50,000 that we have, our revenue under 50,000, our assets under 250,000. Those should both be a no before you can move forward. And so here we are, we're filling in our information for the organization. So what we would like people to start doing now is to be typing in the PTA New York Congress, and then you can write doing business as your PTA name, or you can just put your PTA name. The IRS is accepting both of them. And then the mailing address, again, that appears on your Member Hub page is the address that you want to put here. And then we have your EIN number, which is the one we're trying to get reinstated. So you'll complete that there. Our tax year ends in June. As we all know, June 30th is the end. So that's the month, 06. So again, our fiscal year ends June 30th. Your officer contact name. So this really should be the president or the treasurer, hopefully, that is completing the form. So you can put either one there, and your phone number that you can be reached at. And then at the end, we're going to be submitting the user face. So this will populate, we have a yes in there now, but it will populate the $275 when it's complete. The IRS wants to know that we have our 3 key officers. So those are the 3 that we would put in. If you don't have them, that's fine. We should at least have a president and a treasurer listed. We know we're supposed to have a secretary, but if it doesn't, the secretary name does not appear on here, it will not kick out. So the IRS will still consider your request for reinstatement without them. The website and the email address for the organization, if you have one, a generic one, these are both optional, but you're welcome to type them in. And now we're going to go to part 2. Part 2 is asking the question about what our status is, what type of business we are. And that will be, again, clicking the unincorporated association. New York State PTA itself is incorporated, but our units are not. And we have verified that with the IRS. So again, that's important to note, you are not incorporated. Unincorporated association. So now we're going to go through some of the boxes, the questions that they're asking. And this will appear, these instructions, for those of you that are going to be helping other people do this, these instructions do appear in the PowerPoint. So number 2, check this box to attest that you have organizing documents for the structure above, that you have a president, a treasurer, and a secretary. And the answer to that, of course, is yes, because we have our bylaws. So you have your bylaws in place and they have all of the organizing documents to put our structure together. Number 3, we talked about, again, the charter date. They would like to know when you started as an association. So we'll type in the charter date there. We were formed in New York. And now our questions 5, 6, and 7 also are asking, do we have an organizing document that sets us up as a 501c3? Meaning that you limit your purposes to the exempt purposes that the IRS offers, and the answer to that is yes. And we state that right in our bylaws, that we are organized for scientific or charitable, scientific, and scientific purposes. So we have that, that's in your bylaws. Number 6 is that you do not spend too much time in activities that aren't part of our mission. We talk about that all the time, about our mission statement. So again, if you are doing too many things that are outside of our mission, so our mission is, again, to be a relevant resource for our parents and families. So it's more family engagement. That's the work that we should be doing. An insubstantial part of that should be just a small amount of fundraising that we need to do. If we flip-flop that and find that most of our volunteer time, energy, and resources are going towards fundraising, we are outside of our mission. And so technically we would not be able to attest that we are doing that, but our bylaws state that, so we can check the box that we have the document exists telling us to do that. We also have the document the bylaws also tells us that we how to dissolve the unit. So again, while we don't want that to happen, we do have the instructions within our bylaws on how to dissolve the unit and what needs to be done for that process. So all of these 3 boxes, 5, 6, and 7, can be checked because all of that information is in our bylaws. Under part 3, they're asking for your organization's mission. If you have your own unit's mission statement, you can put that there. I typically just say to people, just put the New York State PTA mission, type it right in there. That really covers what we all should be doing and matches back to our bylaws. So that's a good way to fill in that statement there. No need to, overthink that. Question 2, we talk about that NTEE code. Again, B94, that is the correct one that we would want people to fill in there from the list. And then back to what we were talking about, the purposes, we have selected charitable, scientific, and literary, and educational as the 4 that we cover within the work of the PTA. So you'll just check those off. And now under number 4, it starts to give you, sort of the rules of a 501c3. So keeping in mind that this is not just for reinstatement, but it is also for people who just want to get started as a not-for-profit. So they're just really ensuring that all of the things are in place. We know we have a lot of our things in place, and we've had them in place, but then we got revoked. So this form works for both things. So which some of it might seem a little redundant, but again, it's the IRS giving this a multi-purpose, this document. So all of these things that are covered here under number 4 are mainly found also in our bylaws, where we talk about not being involved in political campaigns, that we are not paying any of our members, our officers. We don't have any employees there that benefit from the work of the PTA financially. We also are keeping within our tax exempt purposes. We are organized as a not-for-profit, and we are not conducting any businesses. And sometimes, schools, PTA units can get into trouble with that. Some of ours that are operating school stores on a consistent basis, and if that's all that they're doing, that sometimes can get them into a little bit of trouble because that's more of a business. So again, if that's a situation you have with one of your units, or that's your unit situation, just reach out to me and we'll kind of go through the details to iron that out. And again, we're not having a substantial part of our work trying to influence legislation. We have one paid lobbyist. It's our executive director, and she handles that on our behalf. And then finally, we don't provide insurance to anybody else. Somebody provides it to us. So we're okay with all of those. And so we want to check that box to attest that we've not conducted or are not going to conduct any activities that violate these restrictions that were listed above. And for the most part, that is something that all of our PTAs can honestly check off. Any questions on that? So again, now they're reaching back about the legislation because it's so important to not be using our nonprofit status to influence things in politically or through legislation. So again, we will say no, we are not attempting to do that. We do have our positions and we do voice our opinions on that, but we're not using a substantial amount of our time to influence legislation. And there's a difference there that's explained if you want to follow the, go back through to the instructions. They'll talk more about that. So again, do you or will you pay compensation to any of your officers, directors, or trustees? That answer is no. Do you or will you donate funds to pay expenses for individuals? That's a no. And we run into that a lot with PTA in the sense that some people might come to us to ask us for help, and that would be considered paying expenses to an individual, which we, of course, very much give the guidance against that. And then also, we're not paying any personal expenses for individuals, like, their costs for them to come to meetings or that type of thing. So it's a double thing there. We're all volunteers and we're doing it out of the goodness of our heart and not for any personal gain. Do you or will you conduct activities or provide grants or other assistance to individuals outside the United States? That's a no. We're not going to be loaning money to anybody. We're not making payments to anybody. We're not paying rent for anybody to live nearby so they can participate in our organization. All of those things are a no. So we talked a little bit earlier about PTAs going outside of the mission. So if you're, again, let's say running a bingo game every Friday night as charitable gaming, and all, it takes a lot of volunteers, and this is how you're raising money, and every Friday night you're raising money. That would be considered outside of our mission because we're not a fundraising association, and certainly charitable gaming is something we ask people to limit. So if you were raising funds that way, that would be considered unrelated business income. And so if you are gaining more than $1,000 of that a year, you should report that as a yes. Again, that doesn't affect your reinstatement, but what will happen is the IRS will, if you check yes there, they'll be looking for you to file the form 1099, another form called 1099-T for this income. And if you don't file that, then it will kick back out. So again, they'll consider your reinstatement, but when you start to file again, they'll be looking for that 1099 form. And if you don't file it, then that's going to be one of the things that could cause you to be revoked again, and not because you forgot to file. And the process to be reinstated from that is a little more extensive. So here we go. Do you or will you operate a bingo game or gaming activities? For the most part, the answer to that is no. We, again, ask our units to limit their gaming activities. The most popular thing is bingo, but for us, family bingo night is not considered gaming in the IRS's eyes. So if you're doing bingo night and you're giving away prizes under $10, and we have that guidance through New York State as well, it's really considered not gaming. So you're okay there, checking no. And then again, as an association, we do not provide disaster relief. That is outside of our mission as well. Any questions on that? Part 3. We'll jump to part 4 now, which is that foundation classification. And so there are several questions here. Are you applying as a church, school? There's that school again, or hospital. The answer to that is no. Again, we are independent of the school, so that is not something that we are mixing. So we are a definite no there. And then we have these 3 choices for our public. So again, we're a public charity, and so our 3 choices are how you receive your money. And so how we would receive our money: public sources. Number 2 is from gifts, grants, memberships, gross receipts from activities like fundraising and events. Or if you, number 3 is about being part of a college or university. So for us, typically most of our PTAs receive their funds through the list on B. So we're going to check box B. And so because we check box B, we can skip 3 because that only is asking for more information if you checked A or C. So we're skipping that question 3. And now we're to part 5, which is our final question. And we've talked about this earlier. So are we applying as under section 4, or are we applying under section 7? So section 4, you would check that box, and most of our units are not checking that box. It's if you've been revoked for less than 15 months. If you've been revoked for less than 15 months, if this is the first time you've been revoked, regardless of why you were revoked, and you were eligible to fill out the 990 EZ or the N. So again, if you brought in enough money that you bumped out of the EZ, which is over 250,000, you can't select 4. You have to fill out a whole nother form. So 4, again, is basically for under 15 months. Many of our units have been revoked for longer than 15 months, the ones that we're looking to help right now. So we're going to look to do number 7. And what number 7 is, it's the short form of it is called the postmark. Obviously, we don't postmark, we're not mailing anything. So the postmark date is going to be the date we submit it. So what's happening is you're asking for reinstatement as of the day that you press submit to the IRS on this. So what does that mean? That means from the time you were revoked to the day you submit, you weren't considered a tax exempt organization. There is a small chance that the IRS could come back and say, you know, prior to your revocation, you were bringing in quite a bit of funds, and those years that you were revoked, if you were bringing in that much money, we are going to charge you taxes for that. That we have only had that on very rare occasions, and when that does happen, there is you have the opportunity to reach out to the IRS and plead your case to not have any penalties like that. I'm sorry, I see that the chat box has things happening. Thank you for helping to answer the questions. Sorry, I apologize. Dana, who was going to come on, was going to help me out tonight with that, and she's ill. Okay, I'm just going to look really quick. Sorry. Okay. Yes, so we're recording and so we'll share, and we certainly, all of our region directors are going to be familiar with the process, and so they can reach out and we'll have time for questions at the end. Well, you can reach out to your region director. So again, so we recommend the postmark. It's the easiest, cleanest thing. So again, the only other thing that would prevent you from doing the postmark is if during the revocation period, you received a large amount of grant money. So, or a large donation, because the person who made that donation or the person that granted the funds to you thinking you were a nonprofit with your EIN, not realizing it was revoked, may report that to the IRS on their own, either 1040, which is your personal, like for the donor, or their own 990, which is their report if they had granted money to you. And then if the IRS matches it up and says this FEIN was revoked, so it's no longer either a tax deductible donation or a legitimate grant designation. So if you receive that, what we have to talk more about the process. We probably would have to move back to either the longer form, or if less than 50 months, we'll do the box 1. So again, if you didn't receive a large grant, if you didn't, again, receive a large donation, and for that, it would have to be considerable funds, well over $10,000, which most of our units are not receiving. You're still okay with checking the box for the Section 7. And then finally, you will just kind of sign it by way of typing in the name of either the president or the treasurer and the date of the filing, and we'll hit submit. And the next thing it will do will pop up the payment. And from there, you will enter in the information that you brought with you to, the session, either the ACH transfer, the recommended way, or the credit card or debit card payment. So once you submit all that, the IRS just kind of processes it all. And like I said, within many of our units have been hearing the response back in 4 to 6 weeks. They will receive a letter with a new letter of determination, recognizing them once again as a nonprofit in a 501c3 status. So what I can't show you, but when you get to the end of this, and I'm going to stop the share, when you're back on when you're on pay.gov and you sign into your account and you submit a form, then there's a place that they're going to print messages, or you can look at a PDF copy of your form. It's saved there, so you can check back there as well. So sign on to that occasionally and check to see if the IRS has left you messages there. Typically, if they leave a message there, they also email. And again, like I said, the one that we experience the most is there's an issue with the payment. Either the credit card was, the date was expired, or the little code thing didn't go through right, or the ACH typically transposed numbers, or a digit was left off. And that's an easy fix. You don't lose everything that you did, you just go back in and fix the payment. If the IRS kicks it back and says, you left off the B94, right? That NTE code. If you leave something out, you can go back and fix it and then just resubmit it. You don't have to repay. And if for some reason the IRS doesn't hear from you, or they decide to reject it, they will also refund your money. So there's no loss if something goes wrong here. But we have been, with the process that we've talked about, where you use the template completed and go on to pay.gov, we've been very successful with the units that have used that. I know in Suffolk, they have really, really lowered their number. I don't know why that popped up. I know that they've been using it quite successfully. And I think in Nassau, we've had a few as well.
We only have 10 in Nassau that are revoked at the moment, according to our list. And 4 of those 10, one is closing, and 3 of them have no officers, so they're not even working or doing anything.
Right. But over the last couple of years, you've used this process very successfully, which is why our list is the lowest historically that it's been since we've had to start filing the 990. So that is, let me go back to the, PowerPoint, just so you can see the end of it. So we stopped here at pay.gov. We talked about a lot of the things that are in the bylaws that give you the ability to check those boxes. Again, bingo, family bingo is not considered gaming. We talked about that question as well, and that the PTA is always independent of the school. So never file anything with the IRS stating that your 501c3 is a school or a school building or any of the above. And our final page is just who's here to help. This is the first one is a contact, obviously linked to all the region directors, and then myself and Dana Welch from the office. So that PowerPoint is going to be available for the regions to use. Again, it can be tweaked. I don't PDF anything, so you want to use it in a training, you can add pictures. It's a very stark, in that sense, PowerPoint. Again, it's 7 slides long, but you can put your own name in here, whatever you want. This is meant to be a tool for the region that are working with the units. So that is pretty much the presentation. As I said, if you gather the template and you gather the responses that you need for that, the time that you're online actually with the IRS is less than a half hour to bring your status back, which is, it's really been great. Those of you that have gone through reinstatements 3, 4, 5 years ago, you had to provide 5 years worth of financials. It was very cumbersome. You had to, really be reaching back to people that didn't even live in your community anymore, asking them, did they have any records? Could they help you? So there was quite a bit of information that the IRS was asking for. Again, they've decided to streamline it. With the idea, again, $50,000 is a smaller nonprofit. And they also, again, I want to remind everybody that they do recognize PTA. They recognize PTA as an all volunteer association. And so they are very mindful of that. And they take that into consideration when they're reviewing the forms. And again, if there's ever fines that are being levied because of your revoked status, they do allow you to write like what they would call a reasonable cause letter of why that happened. And if you simply said, we had volunteers that didn't understand the process, and we are trained now and know that we won't let this happen again, they will sometimes accept that and waive any of the penalties that they have levied. We've had success with that as well. Again, we can be helpful in those situations. But for the most part, this is working very smoothly. As I said, we're getting our units back on track very quickly, 4 to 6 weeks. Val has a question.
Okay, my understanding is that a unit gets revoked only if they're not paying their 990s, correct? Is that the only way they can be revoked?
For the most part, that is the automatic revocation happens if they do not file for 3 consecutive years. And again, they're not filing any taxes. They're just filing a report to the IRS to say we're still operating as the nonprofit we told you we were going to be. So we're still following our bylaws. We're still trying to make our mission a reality. And we're doing that. Obviously the IRS understands that we need money to do that. And we're saying to them, and we're still doing that. We're only raising the money that we need, and it's under $50,000. So yes, that would be the automatic revocation if you don't file that for 3 years in a row. I have not had, in my 4 years as treasurer, any experience with a PTA unit that has been revoked for any other reason. Now I'll probably have the first tomorrow, Val. So, okay.
I got a question. When do they have to file their next 990 after they've been reinstated?
So if they're reinstated before June 30th, whatever that July 1st, right after that.
Okay. So if they're reinstated, say July 1st, then they don't have to file till the following year.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
So it's all about the fiscal year. We will so we would like you to report your reinstatement because we will make sure that you're on our File 990 email list. So the file990.org is a company that we contract with. We do pay for their services through New York State PTA to offer it to all of our units, a free filing of either the 990N, which is the postcard, or the EZ, which you can file if you're under $250,000. Some of our units do use a service to file their EZ, but it's not necessary. It is not that complicated of a form. There's a lot of documents, but half of them you don't fill out as a PTA. You don't have to enter anything. So there's all the additional schedules, but we could help you through an EZ if you needed it, if you didn't have the funds or didn't want to use a service. I just recently used the EZ. I used the file990.org to file a 990 EZ, and they brought up all the schedules and told me what to fill in, and it was very easy. I would like to say that it's been accepted. I don't know that yet. I tried to get it done, so that we would get the good news back, but we have not heard yet if it was accepted because it was a late filing. So we have our fingers crossed that it's not going to come back with penalties, but the file990 EZ file990.org really is very helpful. It's sort of like doing TurboTax. It asks you fill in things and then says, okay, now you have to fill this out. So again, they will email the unit weekly, the president and the person who filed last year's email. They will do that weekly until they see that a form has been submitted with your matching EIN. So even after the deadline of November 15th, they will keep reminding you. So you have the option, obviously, to unsubscribe or, just delete. But if you are receiving their email, it means your EIN has not registered. So sometimes we have people fill out the form, but they forget to hit submit, or they don't see where they need to hit submit. And that is a clue that if you're still receiving the email, that we need to just go back and check that. So we have a lot of things in place to help prevent the revocation. And now we have the tools if a unit does get revoked. I think these tools really are helpful. I will say if you are over 50,000 and you have to fill out the longer form, just be prepared. The filing fee for that is $600. So again, $275 if we could do the easy form of the 1023. If we have to fill out a full 1023, the cost is $600. And that really kicks in if your gross revenues are over the 250,000 mark. So it's our hope that we can get everybody back in line. And I know that we have some constraints and challenges. Maybe, we don't have the officer name, or we don't have the contact information, or the unit maybe, have already finished. So I will want to say that if you have a unit that's finishing like mid-year, you can go on to file990.org and file their 990 before the actual period opens. And the way that it goes through is there's two boxes that you click. There's a choice. So when you're filing the 990, like the postcard or the 1023, if you say you're under $50,000, you check that box. Or the other box that you check is we're discontinuing. We are closing this nonprofit. You can check that, and the IRS will accept that anytime. You don't have to be within the portal of the closing of the fiscal year. You can click that anytime. And then they will just obviously process it from there, remove it from their records. Okay, well, are there any more questions? And Dorian and Zadutu, if you want to stay on and chat, I can. If anybody else wants to stay on and chat with them, you're welcome to stay on. I am going to stop the recording right now.